So towards the end, looking back on everything, I really realized that, I really had to reteach myself a lot of these skills and kind of not just relearn them, but also learn and think about how other people would be learning them and anticipating the questions that to go on these toolkits that would tease out the right sort of insight from students. And it really just gave me a really big respect for the whole learning design experience, because there's so much more to it than I had ever thought. You can't just throw a bunch of stuff up there and instantly expect everyone to learn from it. It really takes some serious thinking and arrangement, but when we were finished with it, I'm very happy with what we've come up with, and I'm really excited to see what a lot of the user feedback is, and implementing some of their suggestions and making it even better and the best it can possibly be.
Great.
So now that we're approaching the point where we're going to be getting feedback on the toolkits, I'd really like to know from students what works for them. I'm really interested in the content side of things. Have we created a tool that is relevant to students? Is it useful to them? Is this something that a student can use and adapt to fit their own needs, or are we way off base? I'm excited and a little nervous to find out how useful is this tool going to be. Moving forward, what I've learned from the project is that just because you have a really good original idea doesn't necessarily mean that that's what your end product is going to look like. And if you're flexible and willing to change your mind, then you can actually end up with a much, much better end product. But you can't be too attached to what your original idea is.
So now that we're starting to get feedback, I'm very excited to see how students actually view the toolkits that we've created. And I think that as much as we tried to make them available to the largest audience, it will be really interesting to see how many suggestions we get on how to change it. And I think it can continue to evolve and just get better and better. That was one thing I learned when creating the toolkits themselves, is that the process of learning evolves in different ways, and sometimes you can get too close to something, and so it makes sense to you, but it might not make sense to someone else. So when we start getting this feedback in, it will kind of show us like how others learned through the toolkit themselves. Through this entire process, I learned more about how I learn and what makes sense to me, and kind of had to step back from that and then approach subjects and projects with a different thought process and a different angle to try to see what else I can come up with. And that was exciting. It was a lot of fun.
I think the most valuable thing that I got out of this entire project was the amount that I learned. And for sure, there's no way that I would have learned the amount that I did this summer if it hadn't been hands-on. The fact that we were going in and having to create stuff and no one was really guiding us. It was a lot of self-directed learning and making those mistakes and then figuring out how to solve those mistakes really was, I've never experienced anything like it, and I've never learned at as fast of a pace as I did this summer. And I think one of the things was we always had to remind ourselves that we had to think like students, because really the product that we were making was for the students. And so if we were creating something that wasn't student friendly, or that students weren't going to, if we were creating something that wasn't going to resonate with students, then we weren't creating something that was going to be useful for them. And so really putting ourselves in the student's shoes, which isn't too difficult since we were students, and just really keeping an open mind. And those are sort of the three things that I learned this summer.
So I think the most important thing that I took away from this was learning about how collaborative projects work and how they work well. And that's when all team members, regardless of what experience they bring to it or levels of professionalism, if everybody approaches the common goal with the same amount of enthusiasm, but also is willing to give the same amount of control and buy-in to everybody who's working on it, it really doesn't work unless everybody feels like they're an equal contributor. And that's why I feel like this project was a success, because once we figured out what our main goals were and we all focused on that, the problems that came up we were able to deal with as a team and go through easily. And that was because we all respected each other's own experiences and strengths that we brought, and we were able to work well.